Hello, I dedicate this short video to Suspicious Observer. Sorry pal, don't take it personally, it's just about the truth. As a person who is making videos with the word news in the title, you should care about the quality and reliability of all informations which you include in your daily highlights. But first, let's listen to your own words.
Solar wind, another of these anomalous jolts that doesn't do much but for the low energy readings. Shocks, streams, and boundary crossings, oh my.
Now, let's assume that for me Suspicious Observer is rather suspicious person. And I simply don't believe in all his claims. Let's begin from looking at the ACE proton graph, which Suspicious Observer didn't even care to show you. First, the spike appeared only at lowest energy bands. On higher energy levels, the spike appeared almost half-hour later. This plot shows the readings of different Canadian geomagnetic observatories. You can see here nicely a small jolt which appeared on the graph almost exactly at the time when the spike was recorded by ACE. And now, some magnetospheric charts. Oh my! However, the velocity and density of solar wind were affected by this spike almost half-hour after they were recorded on the proton graph. At the time when the impact took place, the new versions of SWMF monitors didn't work, so I will have to show you the old versions of the magnetosphere cuts, which don't include the ring currents and Rice convection model. Now let's look how NASA modifies their satellites' data, and they don't even try to hide it. In the moment when the spike appeared on the screen, the density reached 60 units. And bang! Couple minutes after, it dropped to less than 20. However, the second spike, which reached 80 units and above, was not modified, and it entered the model simulation in its entire strength. This is why the second beam is much more dense and clear. Just as the first spike, so the second one didn't cause almost any changes in the IMF magnetic currents. Sorry to say it, Ben. It obviously was not a sector boundary. Another spike appeared on 1st of July at 7:40 UTC. This one was even larger than the previous ones. It reached more than 140 particles per cubic centimeter. And now, look what NASA did with this reading when it added it to their SWMF model. They simply divided it by 10, and instead of 140, we have 14. Quite smart. Haha. However, this impulse was extremely slow, and it reached less than 295 kilometers per hour. This is why the model predicted the time of impact almost 1 hour after it was recorded by ACE satellite. Just as before, the spike didn't affect the magnetic orientation of IMF. But in the case of first spike impact, we were affected much deeper than just magnetically. Maybe you will say that it is just a coincidence, but it looks that right at the moment when the impulse hit the magnetosphere for the first time, there was a 4.8 magnitude earthquake in the South Polar region. So Ben, you can still believe in your theory according to which the probability of earthquake occurring when the coronal hole is facing Earth can eventually rise is simply nothing. But this single event shows something what you are trying to achieve for a long time. It is not about telling if the earthquake can occur or it can't, or how big is the chance that it will occur. In this case, earthquake occurred exactly at the time when the factor was recorded by a satellite. And by exactly, I mean exactly. If you look closely, maybe you will find a minute or two of difference. Anomalies, pulses, earthquakes, oh my. But if you still allow yourself sometimes to think that you are not the smartest guy on this planet, you should ask now, what is the source of all those anomalies and spikes? What is causing it? Well, if you would ask me, I would say that it is possible that those spikes can be caused by cosmic rays, because of the entire heliosphere is currently losing rapidly its strength. Our planet is influenced much stronger by the forces which are not connected with the Sun. However, it is just a guess, because at the time when those spikes appeared on Ace graph, there wasn't any significant cosmic ray recorded. Now, I will have to ask you, Ben, why are you doing this? Well, I was thinking about it some time ago, and I came up with 3 different conclusions. First one is that your knowledge about space weather is actually quite tiny, and besides the monitors which you use almost every day in your movies, you have no idea what mean all those colorful monitors on ISWA and on different pages. Second option is that your entire channel was long ago sold to government or one of its agencies. Maybe they even forced you, and now you are just a dummy in their hands. The only thing which they still allow you to do is to read the text which they give you every day on a piece of paper, so you won't tell anything dangerous. I don't wish you anything bad, but this option is the only one which would still let me feel some warmer feelings towards you. I can imagine that they threaten you or your family, and this is pushing you to tell all this bullshit. Because if not, then we are left just with the third option. And this one is very short. You know perfectly what is going on, as you and your people spend a lot of time discussing the current events, and yet you decided to keep this knowledge just to yourself. Why? Maybe you thought that this knowledge can be too disturbing for all those poor people. If they knew what is going on, they wouldn't sleep so well anymore. So maybe it's better not to bother them. But more probable is that you just made a deal with the people who don't wish good to our civilization. You see, I'm watching your movies with a huge dose of suspicion. I am aware of your capabilities to manipulate the information which you present in your movies. With full premeditation, you are focusing the viewer only at aspects which are chosen by you, while at the same time you are completely ignoring parts of the data which clearly denies your claims. You spend a lot of time showing the solar data, but when it comes to magnetosphere, your news are totally useless. You are capable to intentionally make false statements only to turn the viewer's attention from the aspects of space weather which don't fit into your theories. Some of your claims are not proven at all, and yet you treat them as facts. How did you come to the conclusion that lack of solar flares can be the cause of collapsing atmosphere? What publications or researches did you read to tell such things, especially when shortly after you are telling about the flares powering storm systems, even if the storms seem to behave as they want to, even if there are no flares at all? If you would think just a little bit, maybe you would figure out that the amount of flares depend on the solar cycle. During minimums, there are almost no flares at all. Yet, even if we went through couple hundreds of solar cycle minimums, atmosphere wasn't shrinking before. If you would spend just some 5 minutes looking for any data about this subject, you would know that solar flares are actually damaging the ionosphere. But check this out. It looks that another spike appeared on ACE readings. This one shortly after 7:30 UTC. Density of solar wind reached again 100 particles per cubic centimeter. At the same moment, velocity fell rapidly below 350 kilometers per second. It looks that this extremely dense and slow wave contained only electrons, and it is not visible on proton chart. However, when you will look what happened couple hours earlier, you might be surprised. I never seen such a big spike before, and I never seen the electrons dropping so rapidly during the impact. But maybe you will say that the last density spike and earthquake activity was just... But maybe you will say that the last density spike and earthquake activity correlation was just a coincidence. Well, then it seems that in the case of latest spike, we had a second coincidence. By total accident, shortly after the spike was recorded by ACE satellite, there was a 6.3 magnitude earthquake in Kermadec Islands region.